Hey there, Gary Parrish. Welcome back to the CBS Sports Eye on College Basketball Podcast, where we sometimes discuss camel fighting, dodo birds, and leaky black. The Eye on College Basketball Podcast presented by Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's, a sub above. Matt Norlander is here with me. He's still at NRG Stadium where the national championship was determined. I was going to say earlier tonight, but technically it's a little after 1 a.m. here in the Central Time Zone. It is Tuesday now. I'm in my hotel room here in Houston. If you're watching on YouTube, smash the like button like you're Brandon Davies. You have consent. If you haven't yet subscribed to the CBS Sports College Basketball YouTube channel, also do that while you're here. Okay, let's get into it. The 2023 college basketball season, it's in the books. Title game was a blowout. Final score, UConn 76, San Diego State 59. So the Huskies are now five-time national champions. Three different coaches are responsible for those titles. Jim Calhoun has three, Kevin Ollie has one, and Danny Hurley has his. Dead leg, let's start with trivia time. Only three schools have now won more championships than UConn. In the history of the sport of men's basketball, the Division I level, can you name them?
This is your trivia time?
Trivia time, that's the way I introduced.
This is GP. That's really your trivia time?
I wanted to start you out with a layup and maybe just, get your confidence going before we get this podcast done.
UCLA.
Deep into it. Okay.
UCLA, Kentucky, and Carolina are the only ones with more.
Ding, ding, ding. UCLA has 11. Kentucky has 8.
11? UCLA 11, Kentucky 8, and I think Carolina's at 6.
Carolina is at 6. Duke, Indiana, and UConn now all have 5. Kansas has 4. Villanova has 3. To the game, UConn led by as many as 16 in the first half. Huskies were up 12 at the break. San Diego State never got closer than 5 in the second half. UConn won it by 17. Dead leg, were you surprised UConn won as easily as UConn won?
I am not. What was your pregame score prediction? Because I got mine. I remember. Did you say it on the pod?
I think I said something like 76. I think I said something like 70-65, and then on CBS, that's on the pod, and on CBS Sports Network, right. I said 68-63 UConn. I was just mixing it up. I was giving myself a couple of options. Neither one seemed to be, I had the winner right, like most people had the winner right. And as I noted on the podcast or maybe CBS Sports Network, it all blurs together at this point. I didn't know if that was a prediction with my brain as much as it was a prediction rooted in hope. I thought UConn would win the game. I wanted to watch a close game, so I tried to keep the final score close. And then, but UConn said, no, we're not going to do that.
I had 70-58 with San Diego State getting it close, 6-7 minutes ago, and then UConn pushing away. This is literally what they asked me to say on HQ from the court before the game. So I threw a dart in the dark, and I wound up hitting it. It was 76-59, and I'm not surprised by the outcome. I'm not surprised by how it happened. I thought Tristan Newton needed to play relatively well against SDSU's pressure. He did. Double-double. Didn't miss a shot from the foul line. I thought Jordan Hawkins would have a good game. He did. He went for 16, including a pair of three-pointers. A big one when it got to GP. Was it 6 or 5? I think it was 5.
It was 5. The situation was as San Diego State cuts it to 5, and it's like, okay, maybe we have a game. And then Jordan Hawkins immediately comes down, bangs home a 3 with 5:04 left, pushes it back up to 63-55. And obviously, the game wasn't over there, but I don't know that you can reasonably say San Diego State ever truly threatened again.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, and then Sonogo had 17 and 10, quite clear. Obviously, the player, the MOP. Last year, we actually had we thought McCormick should have been the mop, and it went to Abaji. This one, there's no doubt. The MOP for the Final Four for the tournament, he was the best player. He was incredible. He had one of the best individual performances and most efficient performances we've ever seen from a big man in the NCAA tournament. So I'm not surprised. Before we get a little bit more to big narratives in the game, let me just take you inside the stadium a little bit here. Credit to UConn fans and San Diego State fans. No, NRG wasn't sold out, I'd say, because I took a peek around with about 15 minutes to go in the first half, GP. I'd say it felt in the building I'd say it felt about 85 to 88% full, which I think is actually pretty decent for a couple of teams that are nowhere close to here. San Diego State's on spring break right now. It's not a program that's accustomed to this level. They weren't 1 seeds, they weren't 2 seeds, they weren't 3 seeds. So the energy in the building was outstanding. A great buzz, a great buildup. Yeah, it got off to a rickety start. San Diego State took the lead, and then it went on an 11-minute drought. But I thought we got a pretty – I know the margin was big, and it's going to reflect well overall on UConn, as it should, and we will get to that whole thing in a second. But at least we got, for a moment, we got a game that actually got interesting, because for much of the first half and into the second half, it was like this is just going to be a UConn sleepwalk, and it wasn't that. Jim Nantz did get a little bit of drama on his final NCAA tournament call, which is also nice to know. And then, yeah, UConn kind of pushed away near the end. The three most important players were new. I thought going into the game they would be Hawkins, Newton, Sonogo. That was indeed it. What do you want from me? Connecticut's trouble. I got a few stats for you, but I'm going to save it. What are your primary takeaways on the night overall, GP?
Well, to your point about the building not being filled to capacity, one of our producers at CBS Sports Network had a family member in town, and he wanted to buy her a ticket to go to the game just to experience the Final Four on Saturday, not tonight, but on Saturday. And he bought her a ticket to the Final Four for $43. So
hey, good work if you can get it. That had to be upper bowl, but still, you're in the building.
Yeah. She was in the building for $43 for Saturday's national semifinals. As for this game, it did get interesting with 5 minutes to go, but it was uninteresting for, I'd say, about the 5-minute mark of the first half, with 5 minutes left in the first half, up until there was 5 minutes left in the game. So that's a 20-minute segment of time, basketball time, where it was basically either a double-digit game or very close to a double-digit game. That first half, it's something you and I talked about. We talked about on set outside of the stadium on CBS Sports Network. It is true that San Diego State had come back a lot in this tournament, most recently against Florida Atlantic, down 14 with less than 14 to play, come back, win the game. But I could consistently said over the past couple of days that is not the way you want to try to play this UConn team, because I'm not saying you got to play from ahead, but you probably not coming back from 14 down against them. And again, once they went down 16 in the first half, they never got closer than 5 in the game. And among the reasons they went down 16 in the first half is because they missed, was it 14 straight shots at one point in the first half? 14 straight shots.
It was 14 straight shots, an 11-minute drought, and no other team. So UConn did what no other team did in this tournament, caused another team to miss 14 shots in a row, which is yet one of 100 examples why this UConn team was dominant and great in the context of this season. Yes, it was a ridiculous drought, and keep going, GP. But in the midst of that, as it was happening and as SDSU was missing its opportunities, I thought to myself, this isn't FAU. They can't keep doing this. Once it got to 8, I looked it up when they hit 8. I was like, they got to hit one in the next 2 or 3 here. They cannot get this to 10 or 12. Lo and behold, it got to 14. And that was why when they cut it in the second half to 5, had they been able, if that cut would have been to a tie game, maybe it's a little bit different, but I thought that's what did them in.
And Brian Dutcher, after the game, talked to Tracy Wolfson, and I'm sure you were at his post-game availability, but he obviously
no shot, my man.
No shot.
I was on HQ.
Okay.
I was on the court. I was talking to Bobby Hurley, standing next to Bill Murray. I was not. So please legitimately inform me, because I have no idea what he said after the game.
Well, listen, he was obviously, I don't care how big of an underdog you are, how happy you are to get here. Immediately after the game, it stings, right? I talked to, I was on set. I work with and have become friends with Shelvin Mack, and we were on set tonight together. And Shelvin knows what that feels like. He lost in 2 national championship games, back-to-back years, 2010, 2011. And as Shelvin explained it, and I assumed this was true, but as Shelvin explained it, yes, absolutely. It hurts, and it still sticks with you a little bit. Even in these moments, there was a funny moment the other day we were on set, and it was literally Brent Stover, me, Renee Montgomery, and Shelvin Mack, right? So it Stove's the host. Renee Montgomery played at UConn, just tremendous, and played in the WNBA, of course, Shelvin Mack. And so as Stove is introducing us all, it's like, yeah, I'm Brent Stover. This here with Gary Parrish, our insider. Renee Montgomery, 2009 national champion, and Shelvin Mack, two-time national runner-up. And Shelvin goes, oh, okay. so it literally changes the way you're introduced for the rest of your life. But as Shelvin explained it tonight, he said, listen, absolutely, when you lose the game, it's crushing. Absolutely, because no matter where you're from, Butler, San Diego State, it does not matter. No matter how big of an underdog you might be, when you are 40 minutes away from a national championship, to not get it, it hurts. But he said all these years later, when he and Micah Shrewsbury and Brad Stevens and Gordon Hayward get together, they don't talk about, can you believe we lost 2 national championship games? They talk about, can you believe we made 2 national championship games? And all of the great memories that happened within those seasons. And to circle this back to Brian Dutcher, he seemed to already have somewhat of an appreciation for that. He told Tracy, I said all along that if we lose to a better team, I'll just tip my hat to him. And he never, I guess, called UConn a better team or said UConn was better than us, but he did say UConn was better than us tonight. And the rest of the country knew that UConn was better than them, according to any metric, any way you slice it up. So I think he probably deep down knew that they were going to have to play really well to win and make probably UConn play really poorly for UConn to lose, and neither one of those things happened. San Diego State did not play well, and I don't think UConn played its best game of the tournament, but UConn played well enough to win this game comfortably. Sanogo showed up, Tristan Newton showed up, Jordan Hawkins showed up, and from San Diego State's perspective, it was they were fighting a big battle all night long, but they still won 32 games this season. They still won the Mountain West Conference. They still won the Mountain West Conference tournament. They still went to a bunch of places for the first time. Elite Eight for the first time. Final Four for the first time. National semifinals for the first time. And when they look back on all of that, maybe as recently as in a couple of days, these crushing feelings will disappear, and the good feelings will overrun them.
Come here, Rob Doster. Rob Doster.
Hey, Robbie.
I appeared on the field of 68 at the Big East tournament. He just took his photo on the court. His Huskies got it. By the way, he's got his, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see. Look at this. By the way, the mic is on the board, so you can talk. How did you store this? Was this in the backpack in case they won?
It was in the backpack the whole time. And then I hid over there, and I went through a quick little wardrobe change, GP. You know how that is.
Yeah,
I've done wardrobe changes, not tonight, but other times.
He's familiar with the wardrobe change. Congrats to Rob Doster.
Free throw champion Gary Parrish.
That's what I heard.
Right? Free throw champion. I watched that. I was rooting for you, GP.
I beat Shelvin Mack on Saturday. That's my second victory ever over an NBA player, the other being Danny Granger years ago. And then I beat Brent Stover today. I was actually surprised I beat Shelvin for obvious reasons. I thought I needed to, if I tried to play Shelvin on Saturday at the Final Four, I was probably going to lose. I needed to get him on Monday at the Final Four.
The amazing thing about this is that I can hear you. I can't because I have cans on. He said he beat Danny Granger. Congrats to Rob with the Field of 68. We're all buds in podcast form here. Does a great job.
We're going to talk about camel fighting and Leaky Black over a beer.
How dare you?
Come meet me.
Get out of here. Get out of here. See you later. It was only appropriate. I was on his show after the Big East tournament, and so he's here. They're walking out of the stadium. Obviously, he does a wonderful, wonderful job, and we root for him as I know he roots for us. So quick on the scenes here, GP, and then I want to just toss you a few stats. Caron Butler, and I'm sure the cameras caught a lot of this. In addition to Bill Murray, who I saw Bill Murray stuffing confetti in his pockets, man. It's an amazing, amazing visual. Just a really, really cool thing. And Luke Murray, his grandson is on Klingen's shoulders. I got a picture of that. It was awesome. I saw Caron Butler, Kemba Walker. Dude, Kemba Walker was as fired up as anybody. You had Rip Hamilton. Go ahead.
Kimba came to our set today. So like I probably spent 30 minutes with Kimba earlier.
That's awesome. Ray Allen was on the court. Emeka Okafor was all smiles. There were probably even more. I talked to Bobby Hurley after, and it was awesome to just talk with Bobby and have him reflect on what his brother had just done. Bobby won a couple of championships as a player, of course. The dad's in the Naismith Hall of Fame. We talked about that on our previous podcast and on HQ. And now for Danny to do this, it was incredible. I interviewed Sonogo Klingon, whose look was incredible, and him and Jackson with the shades. Just these are the scenes, the images that make covering this event so much fun, the utter joy. And then for me, the highlight was getting Jordan Hawkins. I'm bringing him over to do an on-court interview for HQ. His mother's right there. He said, "Can I bring my mom?" And I said, "Absolutely." And she's in tears, hugging him in his arms over this incredible journey. GP, like, I can't tell you how many times I turned around on the floor and I saw, I don't know who these people are. They're just overcome with emotion. It's smiles, it's crying, it's staggering about. They just can't believe what's happened. And I want to credit the NCAA for this, in that they have really started to master how to herd the sheep, if you will. There's a process to who gets on the floor when, but they make sure that if you have a bracelet and if you're a family member, if you get cleared, you don't have to wait long before you get on the floor and celebrate with your child, with your brother, your sister, your cousin, whatever. I find it to be such an amazingly powerful, emotional moment that these people get to experience this. Not that they have to run up in the stands or they catch them in the alleyway 25 minutes later. They're getting it right there in the moment, and it was really incredible. Just an amazing scene. And for Hurley in particular, he had a big emotive response as he was running down, and he had a great moment on the dais with Nantz. I could hear it overhead on the sound system. Obviously, came better way better through TV, but he was not. We did not get the just rip the shirt off, boastful Hurley that I thought we'd get. Like, in some ways, like, he's still, he's pent up. He's got all this stuff about him that is just so entertaining, but he really, on some level, like, he has changed his wiring. And while there are so many reasons why UConn won the title, GP, I think how he has learned to handle the pressure, the stress, the stuff in game, I think it's all played a factor. And man, just an incredible story for this team. Didn't have a tournament win under Hurley 3 weeks ago. Now national champions, and in the process validates that's my column. Validates UConn's blue blood status. Hurley told me on HQ, I thought it was there. I get it, UConn fans, you thought it was there. I'm just telling you, from a big picture perspective, it's undeniable now. They just pulled off one of the most statistically dominant tournament runs ever. Didn't lose to a non-conference opponent. Won 17 games out of league play by an average of 24 points. All right. They're 5-0 in championship games. Only the schools we mentioned before, UCLA, Carolina, and Kentucky have more. It's undeniable at this point. The evidence is in. It is irrefutable. UConn is a blue blood. You have to agree, GP. Do you not?
Of course. I mean, what are we doing? I mean, when you've got the 5 national titles. I mean, how did Duke become a blue blood?
Exactly.
Duke wasn't some. Yeah, how did Duke become a blue blood? Duke wasn't some prominent program in the 50s or 60s. It wasn't going head to head with John Wooden, widely recognized as the second best coach in UCLA history. It just kept winning national championships over and over again, and finally we were like, well, Duke's a blue blood. Well, now UConn has matched them championship for championship in 5 in what is it 24 years?
It's 5 and 25 seasons, even though there was no 2020 tournament, but that's technically the math. And only Duke and UCLA have ever won 5 in that short amount of time. And no program has ever won 3 so from 11 to 23 in that span. No one had ever won 3 with 3 different coaches. The laundry list of why UConn easily qualifies for it is long. And I still feel like there might be a few skeptics, but we're here to bring the evidence and make it irrefutable, because it's just not refutable at this point. This is a national brand, and winning it in this style. And again, domination, man. 6 games, 20 points on average, the 6th greatest overall point differential, 120 points. They did it with an exclamation point, GP.
Yeah, like, again, if you're going to call Duke a blue blood, and everybody does, I don't know how you can say, well, yeah, but UConn isn't. That doesn't hold up logically. Real quick on Danny. about like how he sort of, as you said it, rewired himself. There was, I don't know if you probably didn't see his halftime interview, but he was clearly going after the refs at halftime. And Tracy asked him, she said, I saw you, going at the refs. What was that about? And he said, he took a second, and he said, it's a physical game. It's a physical game. But, and then he smiled, and I thought this was interesting because this is a guy who didn't used to smile a lot on the court, at least. He smiled, and he said, but those three guys, those are great officials. I love those guys. Those are three of the best.
He said this going into the locker room?
Yes. He said, but those three guys, I love them. They're great officials. I love them to death. And so it was fine. Like, and when I did the practice show on Friday, and I was the on-court reporter for UConn's hour, and so I talked to Danny there, and I was around him the whole time, and he was just very loose and very and this is even when Jordan Hawkins is sick back at the hotel. He has changed his approach, and I'm with you. I think that probably contributed to this team winning this national championship. At the end of our show tonight on CBS Sports Network, or at least at one point in it, I was asked, what's your favorite moment of this tournament? And there's a lot of places to go, right? You could talk about FDU or Furman or Princeton or, the Lamont Butler buzzer beater in the national semifinals, Marquise Noel's record-setting game in the Garden. And yet I said my favorite moment was just watching Danny Hurley get to have that moment. Because as we've touched on before, this is a 50-year-old accomplished guy who has lived basically his whole life in the shadow of either his dad or his brother or both. He was always going to be the second best basketball player in his family and always going to be the second best, at best, basketball coach in his family, given that his father is a legend, a Naismith Memorial Hall of Famer. And maybe all of that stuff is still true. I don't know. But he's not in the shadows of anybody anymore. He's a national championship winning coach, and he did it. He won it. When that final horn went off, his dad and his brother were right behind him in the stands, and his son was dribbling the ball on the court. It was just a sweet moment that I know meant the absolute world to him. You find, after being in the shadows of your own family forever, the final horn sounds on the first Monday night in April. You win a national championship. Your father and your brother are celebrating behind you, and your son's literally dribbling out the clock on the court. I can't imagine it gets much better than that.
I agree. And we're going to try and keep this relatively reasonable for pod length tonight, but I want a few more things because after the break, we're going to get to more stuff, not to the night. One, I'm seeing Brandon in the chat. This is near my kicker, my column overnight. He said, Hurley's previous quote of "Get us now, we'll live forever." Absolutely. I have it in the column. I'll expand on a bit here. They need to engrave the "Get us now because it's coming" quote all over the practice facilities, all over the campus, all over the state, because that is now something that will live on forever and be attached to the program, to Hurley, as it should. I actually think 5 years from now, it might be something that people think that Hurley said in the middle of the season. It happened in 2020. We're in 2023, but it's the fact that it happened in his second year and he knew it was going to happen and they made it happen here in 2023, I think is absolutely incredible. As for a couple of quick nuggets on it, UConn won every game by 13 or more points. No team in the history of the tournament had won all 6 of its games by 13 or more points, and 5 of the 6 wins were by 15 or more points. No team had ever done that either. They held their final 4 opponents, the 4 toughest rounds in theory: Arkansas, Zags, Canes, Techs, all under 35%. That had never happened before with any NCAA tournament champion, period. So it's not that it was just they were undefeated against non-conference competition and they won every single NCAA tournament game by double digits. It is that they were doing it and performing at a level that was a historical anomaly, or it was just an outright record. This was done in domination. I'm not saying that this UConn team is better than Baylor 21 because I'm not convinced, better than 18 Nova because I'm not convinced, better than 15 Kentucky, which didn't even win it because I'm not convinced, or 12 Kentucky. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is UConn just pulled off, in my opinion, and I'd have to really go back and look, but to me, for the past 20 years, this feels like one of the 4 or 5 most dominant struts to a national championship. And it's so fascinating to see how they did this when they had the 2-6, and I had this line in my column as well. If that 2-6 run in January had not been 2-6, but it had instead been 5-3, even if they took a few losses, I actually think that this UConn team would go down as a team as good as any of the ones that won a national championship. I think that will probably be viewed, and I understand why, below the 99 team and below the 04 team. 11 Kemba, and there's a special magic to that one because they won every single bracket they played in that season. But this team is better than the Kemba team. This is, at worst, probably the 4th best UConn team ever. There's a case that the 06 team that got knocked out by Mason was better, but it didn't get to this point. So if you're a person that says titles mean everything and you want to rank this team 2nd or 3rd best of all time, I'm actually here to hear that, because when you think about Klingon coming off the bench, what Sonogo was, Jackson, the best athlete in the sport, Tristan Newton's evolution as a point guard, Caravan, again, I'll say it again, he's a first-year player that plays like a 5th-year senior. It's incredible what he's been able to do. And then Hawkins, who's an NBA-level shooter. There's just so much there. It's so impressive to see how UConn did this. And again, 120-point differential. I think I said 6th highest before. It's actually the 4th highest ever. The only higher point differentials ever. 96 Kentucky, 129, Nova 124 and 16. Ironically enough, the 18 Nova team I think was better, but the 16 Nova team had the higher margin. 09 Carolina, and then 2023 UConn. Impressive all the way around with what we saw from Sonogo and from the team from really the first game on, GP. And I know I'm going a bit long here, but I was with them in Albany, and like I think back to that game against Iona. And the environment was freaking phenomenal, dude. That was probably the best and most entertaining first half we had in the tournament. And then, just like it happened in every other game, every second half, it was a runaway. It was see ya, goodbye, go ahead, you're out of here. It was just second half runaway after second half runaway, and it was so damn impressive. I got one more thing. I lied. I have 2 more things. One on San Diego State. Aztec fans, you have this forever. And what you've done here obviously brings you up a level. I fully expect anytime in the next literally 1 to 8 weeks, the report will finally become official that you're going to go to the Pac-12. And this we could look up in 5 years, and this was the springboard to an even higher level of consistency. And you have a super high bar. Your fan base showed up in huge numbers. It was super, 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 super impressive to see that. And then completely unrelated, but I didn't want to tag it on the back end of this. I had the good fortune of Jim Nantz inviting me and allowing me to sit down with him on Sunday, literally as he prepared his final notes for his final game. And we sat and we talked. The plan was naively to talk for 15 minutes, and we went for an hour. And he gave me so much stuff that I couldn't put into the column, but I had a thing that went up on Monday, and I just wanted to thank him. There's a woman who normally, she didn't do it this year because she did all the Jim Nantz stuff. Alana Campbell, who works at CBS, is a producer and a director. She is incredible. She MVP to Alana, to Melissa Miller, who's worked with Jim Nantz forever. The story is the game, and Jim wanted it to be the game, but I want to acknowledge the guy. He did our cold open on the first episode of March, and he was just unbelievable to sit down, take a walk down memory lane, try and keep it about the teams, but understanding that, I had to write the story on him. He was gracious enough to give me his time, and I was able to share a quick word with him before the game tonight as he settled in. So that was wonderful. I actually recorded the game because when I go back, I always rewatch the title game, but this one in particular, I want to hear the call. I want to hear Grant. I want to hear Raph, Tracy, and then hear how Jim called. So thank you, Jim, for everything and allowing me in, and a hell of a basketball career. By the way, we'll see you in 2 days at the Masters.
You wouldn't have heard this because you were in the building, but the like final 90 seconds of this game took a while, and it was a blowout. So, as an announcer, you've got you got time to fill, and people are just talking. And at some point, Jim, it is brought up that it is his, the last game, and Grant and Raph start really trying to turn the conversation. It's all rooted in the best place, right? They just wanted to honor their friend and colleague, and Grant and Raph started trying to take it to. They were just talking about Jim Nantz and how much hey Jim, you've meant this and you've done this and you've done this, and he very quickly just took it and turned it the other direction. Like, but this is about the UConn. This is about Danny Hurley. He didn't want to fill that final minute with a bunch of Jim Nantz talk, and instead turn the focus back onto UConn. And that's just a perfect reflection of who that guy is. Like, Jim has always been, couldn't be nicer to me, and complimentary, and just, when you meet a legend, we meet a lot of people in this business. He's a legend. He's an actual legend, and you don't ever know how those people are going to be, or if they know who you are, or if they care who you are. And boy, like, I'm just me, but man, he always made me feel like I mattered. And I get the sense that he does that with everybody. He makes everybody feel like they matter. He's an all-time great broadcaster, but certainly in my experience, just a really great man as well. So I thought he handled the moment beautifully, and I'm glad that so many people are able to say so many good things about him, and you were able to spend time with him and write that column, because he deserves everything he gets. Back to UConn, and then we'll move on. The Huskies finished 31-8, and just their season, as we've sort of touched on, it's just a weird season. They start 14-0 with 13 double-digit wins. Their last 13 games of the season, they go 12-1. Win their last 6 by at least 13. And in the middle of that, there's a 5-7 record over a 12-game stretch. They finished number 1 at KenPom. I wish Jared Burson was here. He could help me with this. They finished number 1 at KenPom and won the national title, but did not win their league or their league tournament. Do you think that's ever happened?
It's first of all, it's easily researchable. So you keep talking, and I'll see if I can give it to you right now. Won the title. Hold on. Do you want 1 at KenPom and didn't do?
Yes, you got to finish 1 at KenPom. You got to win the national title, but you could not have won your league title or your league tournament title. And by the way,
less than 3 minutes.
By the way, UConn is now 5-0 in national championship games, which is, I believe, I know is the best record
by far.
By far. They already held the record when they were 4-0. Yeah, they already held the record when they were 4-0. In this tournament, they beat Iona by 24, St. Mary's by 15, Arkansas by 23, Gonzaga by 28, Miami by 13, San Diego State by 17. It's a nice round number. You've already said it. 120 divided by 6. You know what that gets you. Absolutely dominant performance. Just went through this bracket with really no issues. And whether, I know you were ranking modern history teams, is it better than this one, better than this one? I think we can agree on this. UConn is the no 4 seed. No 4 seed has ever run through the tournament like this 4 seed ran through the tournament. And one last point I want to make is that they do this as a Big East program. But just 3 years ago, they were not a Big East program. They were an American Athletic Conference program. And I think the people at that school recognized, if we want to be UConn basketball again, what we know it to be, what we know it can be, we've got to go back to the Big East. And if that means sacrificing our conference affiliation with our football program, then that's what we're going to have to do. And though it certainly looks like a brilliant decision now, in that moment, it wasn't crystal clear that that's the smart, long-term, big picture thing to do, to basically tell your football program, we don't care where you're playing because we need our basketball program, both men's and women's, in the Big East. And I know Danny wanted to make that move. I know Gino wanted to make that move. And I think you can reasonably say, I'd like to get your opinion on this. If UConn's administration doesn't make the decision to leave the American for the Big East and not completely sacrifice football, but certainly diminish football, just say we're prioritizing basketball in the Big East over anything else, in a time where most universities, even so-called basketball schools, prioritize football because that's the big money maker. That's the thing that gets you where you want to go in terms of conference realignment. UConn's administration decided we're putting our basketball programs back to the Big East, for better or worse, when it comes to football. And I think you can reasonably argue that without that decision being made, this night might not have ever happened.
I completely agree with you on that. The thought actually flashed across my mind as I was writing the column, but I didn't want to just take a duck down an alleyway into that. I think that's a major part of this, without a doubt, worth further examination. We can even get to more UConn on the other side. The answer to your question, never happened. UConn is the only team to win a title, be won at Ken Palm, and fail to both win its league and win its league tournament. Had never been done before in this era. UConn, another barrier broken.
All right, so that's 35 minutes of looking back. Next, we'll look ahead. Will UConn be the favorite to also win the 2024 NCAA tournament? We're going to discuss that next, but first, a word from our partners.
Hey, Calvin, you play golf. You think you can win one of those green jackets at the Masters?
Well, if it's for being the most loving neighbor of the year, yes.
It's a tradition unlike any other. The Masters on CBS.
So, here's the question. Is UConn also going to be the favorite to also win the 2024 NCAA tournament? For what it's worth, I have UConn at number one in the preseason top 25-1 based on the Huskies returning 5 of their top 6 scorers. I've got them returning everybody except Jordan Hawkins, who is a projected lottery pick. I know Andre Jackson, Adama Sanogo, both have decisions to make, but neither of those guys are projected first-round picks. I got to think their name, image, and likeness opportunities are going to be pretty good. I've got them returning 5 of the top 6 scores and entering next season as the number 1 team in the country.
All right. So a couple notes on this. One, that we talked about this on the overnight for HQ, me and the tremendous Team Dermish, because it feel like UConn is setting up as one of the stronger teams to be a legitimate repeat team that's out there. But they're going to lose more than Hawkins. Between Jackson and Sanogo, I'm not saying they're losing all of them, but Jackson, Sanogo, Klingon, some guys are going out of there. Now, they have a highly rated recruiting class as well. I like your spiciness with UConn as one. We will have to revisit it, I think, soon. It's going to be very interesting to see. You take the trade-off every single time. You've won the title. I mean, get out of here. The staff would literally trade off, okay, we'll win the title, but we have to lose Kling, Jackson, and Sanogo and Hawkins. We'll do it. I mean, you take it. I'm not saying they will, but they're losing more than Hawkins. I would be genuinely shocked if they did.
Why? Why are they?
Because there's enough intrigue around Klingon being a first-round pick at this point. I think Sanogo's improvement with the three-point shot is enough to make him consider it. And Andre Jackson, he needs to work on his shot. I just think that you win a title, you've helped your stock on an individual basis enough that I just think the odds are at least one of, like, Hawkins is gone, and he should be gone. He's got great stock. Some guys think he's going to be like a poor man's Klay Thompson, which is an incredible compliment, and we'll see if he can actually grow into that as an NBA player. Let's not put too much pressure on these guys, but I understand where the comparison comes from. I just think, and I'd love to be wrong, give me as many familiar players returning to college basketball as possible. UConn bringing back almost everyone would have to be the preseason number 1 and an amazing story. But I just feel like, GP, that these guys are going to go through this, and someone is going to get enough of a return here from input from guys at the next level that they're going to say, I won my title, my moment might be now, and I'm going to go ahead and take a chance.
As always, maybe. But we are living in a different world. And it is a world where, because once upon a time, you're exactly right. Guys would be like, I've won my title. Jalen Brunson is an example of this, right? I've won my national titles. I've done everything I can do at this level. It's just time to get on with it, whether I'm a second-round pick or whatever. And that all made sense at the time. But we live in a world now where whether you're Oscar Tshiebwe, Drew Timme, any established college basketball star who isn't an ideal NBA draft prospect, there is a scenario where doesn't matter how much you want to get on with it, somebody might tell you you can make more money in college than you can make playing professional basketball next season. It's why I'm still, until Drew Timme says definitively, no, seriously, I'm never playing college basketball again, I'm just going to, I'm going to take him at his word for now, But I think there's going to be a moment where somebody tells Drew Timme you can make more money playing college basketball next season than you can playing professional basketball. And I think, and you know who else I think is going to hear that? Andre Jackson and Adama Sanogo and Donovan.
But Sanogo wasn't born in the United States, so he will still be able to get on NIL, and they could fix it in the offseason. But Zach Edey's going through the exact same thing. Not born in this country, you have to get a certain visa approved to get the actual NIL money. It's not to get it; it's just a little bit tougher. That's all. So I just if that becomes a tougher process, I wonder if that also becomes a factor with Sanogo. That's all.
That is something you have to work around. But there ain't a successful basketball program in America who couldn't figure out how to work around that. Kentucky figured it out with Oscar Tshiebwe. UConn can figure it out with Adama Sanogo, and Purdue can also figure it out as it pertains to Zach Edey. Either way, like John Rothstein and I debuted our top 10s earlier tonight on CBS Sports Network. And Rothstein's like, even if they lose Sanogo and Hawkins, he'll still have them number one, which I think you can reasonably argue is correct. So this team will have, this program will have a chance to repeat as national champions. Obviously, the tournament there's some randomness to it. You can be the best team and not win it. That happens all the time. But they're going to be set up to at least have a realistic goal of being the first back-to-back champion since Florida did it under Billy Donovan. If you're interested, real quick, I'll run you through the top 10 of the top 25 and 1. Number 1, UConn. Number 2, Purdue. That is based on Zach Edey coming back, and I believe the Boilermakers will return their top 7 scorers if Edey comes back. Number 3, Marquette can bring back everybody. Number 4, Miami can bring back 4 starters. Number 5, Florida Atlantic can bring back all 5 starters from a 35-win team that finished 17th at KenPom. Number 6, Creighton can basically bring back everybody. Number 7, Alabama. I think Bediako and Quinterly both withdraw from the NBA draft. Number 8, Duke. Number 9, UCLA. And number 10, Kansas. And if that were any other roster, I probably wouldn't have Kansas at 10. But I'm just never going to put Bill Self outside of the top 10 of a preseason ranking.
Kentucky has a really good freshman class. Where do you have them?
I have Kentucky obviously ranked, and I did project Tshiebwe to come back, even though he's indicated he probably won't, because I think he's going to be told you could make a lot more money at Kentucky than you can make playing professional basketball next season. I've got Kentucky at 13 behind number 11, Michigan State, number 12, Arkansas, and then it's 13, Kentucky, 14, Arizona, and 15, the team that just played in the national championship against UConn, San Diego State, and that is based on them returning 5 of their top 6 scorers. They're going to lose Matt Bradley. He's out of eligibility. Nathan Mensah, same deal. But San Diego State can very reasonably return 5 of its top 6 scores.
All right, that's a good list. I don't have expansive thoughts on this, nor do we need them as we approach 2 a.m. Eastern on the Central Hour, but that is intriguing. You'll have faders on Purdue, and I get it, and I won't push back on it. Marquette's super interesting. I think Marquette needs to be preseason top 5 as long as everyone comes back, as is expected there. FAU, I'd buy FAU anywhere from 3 to 10 basically overall. Now we'll see how a school of that level actually handles that amount of attention and pressure. I could see FAU entering the season as number 8 in the AP top 25, number 5 in your rankings, and then we look up and it's not a top 25 team on Selection Sunday. That wouldn't be a stunner, but based on just logic and what they have in the roster, I think that makes a ton of sense there. One other one, I just forget if you mentioned or I missed it. Where do you have Creighton?
I have Creighton at number 6. They can return everybody.
Yeah. They gotta be a top 10 team. And again, more good signs for the Big East. Creighton should be there. Marquette, UConn. I mean, hello, what are we doing here? Like the times couldn't be greater for the Big East. That's not even getting to the new hires there with everything that's happened. So that is GP. You can read GP's top 25 and 1 obviously on the CBSSports.com, the CBS Sports app. Nada, let's put that in the real-time producing here. Let's also put that in the pod description so people can look ahead. And as always, that gets updated with a quickness as we learn more about roster stuff and draft declarations and portal and whatnot. But never too soon to start looking ahead. And more validation, by the way. I tagged my column with this, GP. 5-0 in title games. They do it in dominant fashion. And, oh, by the way, that's not good enough for you? How about this? You win the national title, and you go into the immediacy of the offseason as the number 1 team. UConn's all the way back, baby.
I think that's a final podcast of the season.
It is. One more thing. Bring it up, Nada. The streak continues. You think they're gonna hold me down? No shots. First, if you're watching on YouTube, Guster is for Lovers made the broadcast again. I was a little more mid-court. It got in there. Thanks to the great Timothy Burke at Bubba Prague on Twitter, tweeted the most important college basketball tradition. Matt Norlander's Guster sticker at the national championship game. Got it. I was looking down. Meanwhile, Hurley, what face is this? What is this like? I got to use the bathroom. What? I got to get a sub in. I don't know, but the screen cap couldn't be more incredible. Guster, by the way, sends its thanks and its regards. The guys were dialed in to the title game. They had their doubts, but we made it happen, baby.
Shouts to Devin Downey. Shouts to Chester, South Carolina. Shouts to Hug. Shouts to Larnell. Thank you guys once again for listening, watching the Eye on College Basketball podcast. And I mean this sincerely. Like, the numbers have been great all season, better than ever. You guys push us to the top of the college basketball charts at iTunes and all sorts of other places. And I mean, geez, if you were listening live at 3 a.m. on the East Coast right now, 2 a.m.
Seek help. We love you, but seek help.
in at 2 a.m. here in the Central Time Zone. Thank you. And dead leg, Nada, thank both of you guys. These things can get overwhelming sometimes, but we have to work around schedules, often more mine than anybody else's. So appreciate all of that. This is a lot of fun. It's never lost on me. Like, I get to pay my mortgage by talking to my friend about basketball. That's a pretty neat gig. I don't know how all this happened, but boy, I'm glad that it did, because I don't know what else I'd be able to do.
It's a lot of fun. I love that we podcasted in person. It now looks like I'm ascending to heaven because I've got this bright light above me, but this is not his first visual appearance ever on the podcast. There he is.
I didn't think about that.
Working hard. I'm also going to turn it around. The great Sam Batesh, who oversees our podcast stuff, literally listening to the show the entire time, staying behind in the stadium. Sam, you're incredible. Thank you to our entire team. We're going to be back in no time. We got a full off season worth of content, but I think we both need a quick breather, a quick reset. Thank you to everyone. Thank you to everyone that found us here in Houston. I'm walking out to my press seat earlier tonight, and I got 4 San Diego State fans screaming at me, "There's more of us."
Yeah.
You guys are the absolute best. We appreciate you. I'll shut up. You can wrap this thing, baby.
I can't tell you how many people I met over the past few days who have sex before marriage. I mean, tons of them. People having sex nonstop before marriage. So
all right, it's now okay.
I mean, we appreciate them, and I also appreciate the thems. I don't agree with them, but I appreciate them.
That's right.
On that note, good night. We'll talk to you again real soon. Till then, take care.